welcome to another episode of Stingers and Dingers, the only podcast in the world hosted by the three of us. And
That's
that's
right.
true. That's just facts. The three of us being me, Dallas, that's Drew, and that's Matt. And we are so excited to have a name on the show. It was in the bumper and on the
hmm
channel last
hmm
week, but not in the audio of the show. So excited to have the name. Um, Drew actually came up with the name. He sent us a few options, and Matt and I like this one the best. So, Drew, do you want to give a quick word on where this inspiration for the name came from?
Yeah. So uh, it's hard to come up with names. I think everyone can kind of agree it's not an easy thing to do because they all sound lame when you say them.
Yeah, you
Uh,
say it out loud and it feels bad every time.
yeah. So we didn't have a name. I was just kind of brainstorming, and one of the ideas was, well, this is a sports podcast, but it's really specifically a baseball and a football sports podcast. So I would like to come up with a name that can rhyme, so it's snappy and includes things from both. And this was one of the first ones I came up with. And then Dallas added the little flourish in that, down the road, we can use it as a segment because dingers, for those who don't know, are home runs in baseball, and stingers are it's like painful hits in football, basically. So, one's good, one's bad. So the good thing and the bad thing of the week could be our dinger and stinger. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, it just was a simple way to combine the sports and give us our little snappy name.
It's there.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect name. Sports are up and down, as we all know. And look, up and down for every team involved. You got winners, you got losers. We have a great show today. We're going to have some fun. Up top, we're going to do a little draft, so get more into what the draft is going to be a little later. Later on, though, in the second half, we'll talk about baseball. We got Hall of Fame came out a couple of days
hmm
ago, maybe
hmm
yesterday. Hall of Fame came out as we're recording this, but earlier this week, we had Hall of Fame come out, and then later last week, we had some big free agent signings that we talked about on last week's show actually take place. And what those signings brought about is a little bit of, sparked a little bit of interesting conversation between us. So we wanted to have that conversation here as well. So yeah, big show, big show. We're gonna have some fun. So like I said, top of the show today, we're going to start with a draft. And we're going to draft between the three of us. Getting involved here and getting in the mix. And what we're going to do is we are going to draft from the players who are left in the playoffs. So if you weren't tuning in, the winners from last week's games were the Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, and the Commanders. So those are your four teams going to the conference championship. So we are drafting players from those teams, and it's going to be broken down by position. So the positions and how we're going to do it is we'll all take a quarterback, we'll all take a running back, and we'll all take two pass catchers. That could be a wide receiver or a tight end, just two total. And then we'll take an offensive line as a unit. So one team's offensive line and also one team's defensive unit as a whole. So you get the whole defense in there too. So the order of the draft, it will be a snake draft. So that's the best kind of draft in my opinion, most fair. But the order of the draft will be and has been, in fact, a long time ago determined, set in stone, fated by the results of the punt, pass, and kick competition that we did for our fantasy league that we're a part of together. Matt, being the commissioner of that fantasy league, go ahead and run down how that how did the idea for a punt pass kick come about that determined our draft order in our league? How did that come about? How did it come to your head? And then how did it work out?
Yeah, dude. So our fantasy league has always been one of my favorite things that comes about every year. For years now, we have had the same way of determining draft order, and we tried to keep it fair. We didn't want anyone to have any disadvantages. I mean, our league has a mix of boys and girls in it. We didn't want to have anything that was going to be too severely one-sided. People who are out of state, in state, all of the above. So we had an online duck race. It's just randomized everybody's name got put onto a little cartoon duck. The ducks would race, and we would watch it live. And honestly, it was for quite a while. I thought it was pretty riveting. But
I
we
loved
just
it.
got yeah. No, I when it comes to like a randomized draft, I would much rather have something like that where you are screaming for a little duck that
Hmm.
isn't real. Like
It's like
it's not like
the races they do on the big screen at sporting events. It's like it's all
yeah,
predetermined by a
yeah.
computer, but you're
Yeah.
You're still like in it. You're still rooting for, clown duck.
Mhm.
But yeah, so we had those duck races and they're awesome, but we just got to a point where we're like, what more can we do with this league? I've been running it since 2016, 2015, something like that. I mean, it's been a while, and I wanted to just start adding more to it. And with that came, hey, maybe we can do an actual competition. One of my favorite videos of all time, if you've ever seen it, is Andy Reid doing a punt pass kick competition as a child, where he looks like he's maybe 30 years old compared to the
He's
rest of the
twice as
children,
big as anyone else there. Yeah.
legitimately. And it's one of my favorite videos, just watching that. But I was like, it would be kind of fun to see all of us do that. Like all of our friends, we have friends who are so like athletically gifted in so many different ways. And so punting, passing, kicking, it really provides a variety. And so we went for it. Um, we got a celebrity guest to announce the official order. He got to see the results. Had a few choice words for some of our league mates. I won't say any names, but uh, it was fun. I am excited to see if that is what we kind of continue with in the upcoming year. Um, I feel like I have a lot of room for improvement. The first time around, we did no warm ups. We just went right into it, and that hurt my final score for sure. Age is really making itself known to me, but
Well, we're technically like if we were professional athletes, we would be in our prime years. Um, but we're not professional athletes, so we're all well past our prime athletic years.
yeah, it's crazy that you say that because like it's true, right? Like I look at some of these people like you look at a pitcher, they say the prime starts in their late 20s, right? And I recently found out that I have arthritis. So really, we're in quite different spots in life.
Right.
I
Yeah,
guess,
yeah, I'm still like, even like last year when we did the punt passing kick, I got my results and I'm like, you know what? I still have yet to get big and strong. I bet next year I'll be good. And I think that way sometimes still, and it's not, this is it, this is
I
it.
I think what hurt your guys' cause too is like I had an unfair advantage as the commissioner because I saw all the entries coming in, right? Like
Mhm.
I had ballpark numbers of like, okay, this is kind of the standard being set. You were the first two people who submitted your punt, passes, and kicks.
And
Um,
bottom two, spoiler alert, the
spoiler
worst
Yeah,
two
alert,
spoiler alert.
scores.
Again, we
the
didn't do
low,
well. I didn't
the
do well.
lowest two scores, which shocked me. I did have Drew in my top three prediction. Um,
It's high
I
praise.
had I had Dallas not last in my prediction, and that's just not the way it happened.
Hey, we'll get them next year.
Yeah.
But hey, Dallas came in second this year. Like let's just say,
It
like
doesn't,
let's
yeah,
put
it
that.
doesn't necessarily determine how well your season is going to go.
Uh-uh, uh-uh.
Right. Right. Yeah,
Well,
I'm not playing. I'm moving the lineup up and down. That's where I ride. That's where I go. So,
Mental game's
um,
half the battle, brother.
so yeah, so that's how it broke down, and how the finishing order broke down between the three of us is, and how the order of this draft will go is that Matt will go first, Drew will go second, I will go third. So that is how it broke down, between the three of us here.
And then we'll kind of snake
So
it.
yes, and then yeah, in the second round, I'll go first, and Drew, and then Matt, and then we'll snake it around. So that's going to be how it'll go. I say let's get into it. Let's get started.
all
Um,
right.
Matt has the first pick. All positions open, all players on the board. Let's see what happens from here.
Ooh, first pick. Honestly, I was between two things, right? Because the most important position of football, if you're talking about who's going to win you and lose you a game, you've got the quarterback, and in my opinion, you've got the offensive line.
Mhm.
I have this like tear in my head of which way I want it to go. I think at the end of the day, I just watched my Rams get their asses kicked by a dominant offensive line. I mean, just I every time I thought we had them bottled up, it was a 60-yard run. And at the end of the day, if you can run like that, if you can protect the quarterback like that, if you can do those types of things, you're going to win football games. And so I think we've got a lot of talent elsewhere. I got to go Eagles O line.
I love it.
I think
I
that's
love
my
it.
first pick.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love that an offensive line is going early. That
Mhm.
is the, as you go through the stages, right, of football knowledge. Right now I'm in my offensive line era. I'm in my trenches matter era. And so I definitely am loving that an offensive line is going first.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think that's a good call too. I think that Philly, specifically their O line, um, it was ranked by Pro Football Focus the second best offensive line this year, and then the next best on the list from the remaining teams is Kansas City was seventh overall, which is not bad, but I mean definitely without a doubt the best offensive line left in the playoffs, and we saw that on full display on Sunday. And I had a similar line of thinking where I had Philly's O line ranked first for the O lines available, but I also had their running back ranked as the highest running back. Um, and so, he doesn't do what he does on Sunday without the offensive line, but he's also a very special runner. Saquon Barkley, I think positional value here is kind of where I'm going. I don't think a running back is necessarily the most important position, but I think the drop between the quarter or like the difference between the quarterbacks is smaller than the difference between the running backs that are available. And I think Saquon Barkley is without a doubt the best running back uh, left in the playoffs, and so he's going to be my first pick.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, watching Saquon, not only just through the regular season, obviously he had so much to hit the highlight reels this regular season, but just to watch him in the playoffs. I mean, especially, in a game where it's a snow game, it's a tight game, this is the divisional round, you got to win to go forward. Everybody in that building knew that once the snow started coming down, the Eagles were going to lean on Saquon, and he still was able to get it done.
Mm.
And it's shouts to the offensive line. It's shouts to all of that. It all works together for the Eagles, right? But you have in that game, he was it, for the Eagles
Mhm.
once the second half hit, and they didn't have to try to go anywhere else, and because he was just winning, and hitting those home runs and running 20 plus miles an hour or whatever he hit, in the snow. Um, he's having a very, very special postseason.
He's different, dude. Like straight up, he's different. It's
Yeah,
I don't remember the last time I watched a running back that looks like him.
yeah, absolutely.
And I
No,
think we're all three guys who are you don't necessarily need the best running back. Like, you know, the running back as a position might be a little overrated, but I think there are certain players who rise above that, and I think Saquon is one of them.
Absolutely.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that too. So I'm in an interesting position here.
Dude, you've got your
I
take of quarterbacks
because
if
I
you want them.
because I've got back to back as well. So but I'm in an interesting spot because I think, yeah, I have my pick of the quarterbacks. I like a defense, but maybe we don't go there yet. I like some of these pass catchers I have at the top of my list here. I think with my first of my two back-to-back picks, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take uh I'm gonna take the Bills offensive line. for my pick here. So that's my offensive line I want. And the reason is because I think I look at their sack numbers, right? Their pass blocking numbers. They're incredible. They have, uh, like a 2.6% or something sack rate in the course of the regular season. Josh Allen, you know, he helps them out a little bit. He's that balance of, gets the ball out on time, but also can move around and help out an offensive line with those kind of things. But they also, were fourth in ESPN's pass block win rate this year. So, that's again through the course of the regular season. But I think that they are a really good pass blocking unit. And I think I wanted them protecting my quarterback here. And so, yeah, I'm taking the Bills offensive line for me. That was the one I wanted. So I'm happy to end up with them here at the top of things. Um, and then from here, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna.
Yes.
Maybe I shouldn't do that. I'll take Patrick Mahomes
Yeah.
with my first pick of the second round.
Yeah, that's the right
He
choice.
Yeah, you can't lose picking Patrick Mahomes, right? I think I learned that this year in our fantasy league. Like, I picked him, and some weeks this year it wasn't great, other weeks it was, and you just gotta ride with him. And even if he doesn't turn in a great performance and you lose the matchup, you picked him, and that was the right thing to do. Process matters, right? And so I think the process here says pick Mahomes, so I'm going to take him. I think he might, he's probably the worst runner of the four that are left, the four quarterbacks that are left in the
Mhm.
playoffs. But his ability to extend plays just enough is it's there, it's still there, and he can still do the impossible. I mean, that touchdown to Kelsey, he did the falling down, throw a dart thing, and that's crazy. No one should be able to do that, and yet he still can do it. And so I think that I'm going to get him behind that Bills offensive line, and we're going to cook.
All right. And because you chose Buffalo offensive line with your first pick, and Matt already chose the Eagles offensive line, I can now wait for my offensive line. Because you can't take more than one. Um, so no disrespect to offensive linemen out there, very important, but I'm not going to be taking you until the last round now because that's how these drafts work. I think, yeah, Mahomes definitely the pick. If Matt had gone Mahomes 1-1, I would not have been surprised.
Yeah, that's who I was torn between. I was like, do I want offensive line or do I want the guy who literally doesn't lose to anyone but Tom Brady?
Yeah.
And
And I think, yeah, Mahomes who can kind of be like, well, he didn't have the best statistical year this year. They still were winning, obviously, but like the offense wasn't as explosive. But he's the only one left of the quarterbacks who's won a Super Bowl, and he's won three of them. So, I mean, that means something. Uh, the playoff success is undeniable. I think, I have a decision to make. There still hasn't been a pass catcher taken off the board, but um, I think, if Mahomes is without a doubt the most trusted quarterback left in the playoffs, to me, no disrespect to Jaden Daniels, he's still a rookie, and he looked amazing. Um, and I'm really impressed by him, and he looks like he might have it, but he's still technically unproven. Jalen Hurts, I don't really, buy that a lot of the Eagles' success is because of him, and so I'm going to go ahead and take Josh Allen, who I think is, maybe this year the best quarterback of these four, like almost definitely, but also his lack of playoff success, it doesn't often fall on his shoulders. I the most famous game I can remember is the Chiefs Bills divisional round game from a couple years ago where they went back and forth at the
yep.
end. It was not Josh Allen's fault whatsoever that the Bills lost that game. And so I think as much as you definitely have to trust Mahomes the most, I think Josh Allen is a pretty easy second most trusted quarterback for me. And his talent can just take him to that next level where he can extend plays and he can run guys over. And he can do the tush push just as well as Jalen Hurts. So uh, he's going to be my pick for the second round there.
Yeah, I think that's a strong pick. Similar to you in the offensive lines, now I kind of have my pick of quarterbacks that I could just sit on. So I'm
Hmm.
gonna have to choose, which of these guys do I want to snag? But okay, back to back, still not a single pass catcher taken. Impressive work, fellas. Um, Man, oh man, we've got some solid options here. We've got some talent on the board. I've been writing down just like my favorite guys from each of these teams, and I'm kind of looking through it. I think I'm gonna go unconventional. I'm going with the two groupings here. I'm gonna pick a defense. I'm gonna grab the Chiefs defense. Um, the Chiefs went 15-1, and I think in no part because of their offense this year. And you look at what brings success in the postseason. It's pass rush, but more specifically, it's interior pass rush. And I thought about the Eagles. Jalen Carter's incredible. He killed the Rams' last hopes. We had something going there until he kind of smushed it. But Chris Jones is different, man. I mean, for the longest time, it's been Aaron Donald on this pedestal, and right there behind him is Chris
Who?
Jones. Sorry, I didn't mean to give you PTSD.
Yeah.
um, Dude, remember that video of Geno Smith? Oh God!
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm taking the Chiefs. Uh, there's not much else to say. I'm a big fan of Spagnola. I like Chris Jones. I think this defense has it. They've proven they perform in the playoffs. It's similar to Mahomes, honestly. Like they have a proven track record that they can get it done when it matters. Um, so I have an offensive line in my defense shirt up here. I like that. Um, oh boy. Got running back and two pass catchers. Um, I think we got to go with the dominant force here. I think when given the opportunity, I don't love this guy's. I don't love what's going on with the passing offense for this team, but if you pull him out of the situation, I think he's one of the top guys. I'm picking AJ Brown. I think AJ Brown is a dog. I think he dominates the guy in front of him. Say what you want about the drama, say what you want about whatever, the stats. When it comes down to you need a one-on-one, I'm putting the ball in his hands. Like I'm trusting him against basically any corner in this league. So I'm taking AJ Brown off the board, and I think it's good to get just a stud for whatever quarterback I end up going with.
Yeah, for me, AJ Brown is the most talented wide receiver left in the playoffs. We
Yeah.
all know what comes with that. Sometimes you can be a bit much, on the sideline. You can be a bit much in the locker room at times. But I think, having his skill set out there is just worth it. Seahawks, not DK is not similar to him in the sideline or the locker room part of it, but just watching the Seahawks for the last few years when DK's been who he's been,
Mhm.
having a guy like AJ Brown or DK Metcalf who dictate coverage, right? Like
Yeah.
it just makes things so much easier for your
The
offense
defense
because
has to shift to them.
they have to account for them every time they're on the field. And it makes things easier for your other receivers. It makes things easier for your running backs. And so, yeah, having AJ Brown is so valuable.
Yeah.
Even if, for example, in last weekend's game, even if he's not doing much,
hmm
numbers wise, production wise, he's taking people away from the ball.
hmm hmm
Yeah. That's funny. Is it weren't AJ Brown and DK college teammates?
Yes,
They
sir.
were.
That's pretty
Yes.
crazy.
Yes, sir.
Um, all right, yeah, I think that's a great pick, but I think I also want to get a pass catcher on my roster. And there's a couple options here, but I think for me this year, uh, the guy I want is Terry McLaurin from the Commanders because I mean, he's been good for a long time. He's gotten over 1,000 yards each of the last 5 years. Um, but the whole thing was like he's super talented, but he never had a quarterback. The Commanders have famously not had good ones in recent years, and then this year they get the number 2 pick. They get Jaden Daniels. He's amazing for them, and Terry McLaurin has his best year yet. He had 1,096 receiving yards, and he had uh, 13 touchdowns in the air. That's good enough for All Pro second team. Pro Bowl this year, only his second one, kind of surprisingly, but yeah, I think he'll be an excellent wide receiver one on this team I'm building.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely underrated as ones go. I think Terry. I think that'll change with the emergence of Jaden Daniels. Now, I think people will see, him for what he is. But yeah, watching him in the playoffs this year has been just great. He's a guy I've followed for a while, like, just knowing who he is and watching him make plays. And so I'm really stoked. He has kind of a bomber on his squad. He's got someone who can take advantage of his skill set by getting the ball out on schedule. Really helping him to showcase his ability. So yeah, great pick. Is it me now? Right?
It is,
Yes,
yes.
sir.
Okay. Yeah, me. Okay. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna go pass catcher 2, and I'm gonna go with Devontae Smith. The Eagles 2, who I think, with the exception of possibly the Commanders, would be the one on any other team in this playoff year. He is, he's that guy that benefits from what I was talking about, right? If he benefits from AJ Brown being on his team, and he is someone who not only can benefit from that and get his catches, and all that, but he can also make plays off of getting those catches as well, So I think he is supremely talented, and yeah, he makes those two together on that Eagles team. They make life really, really bad for opposing defenses, and so yeah, I'm happy to have welcome in Devontae Smith to be my lead receiver on my team. I think he'd be great. I'd love to see him with Patrick Mahomes as well. Maybe we see that.
That would be crazy, dude.
That would be great. I would love to see that. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. Am I supposed to root for the Chiefs? I don't know. But it would be fun. All right. So next pick here, I think that I'm gonna go with probably defense 2, because I think I don't want to end up with one of the other 2 of these defenses. I kind of really don't. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the Eagles defense. And I think their defensive line is just monstrous. Jalen Carter, the Seahawk that never was kind of, situation. Everyone thought we were going to do it, and then, they didn't do it. They took, in that draft, they took Spoon and JSN instead in that first round. So, but Jalen Carter, watching him in that game on Sunday, I don't have to tell you, Matt, like watching him in that game, it's very, very impressive. Like he was very, very impressive. In both the pass rush and in the run game. He really, he shut the door on the game for the most part. And so having him on my squad sounds like a great idea. And their secondary still bangs. Even considering, that some of these guys weren't, the most hyped talents possible. I think Darius Slay still solid, and the secondary still bangs. So I think, having them on my team sounds like a good idea to me. I think I get a good squad.
If you're talking about raw talent, it's the Eagles are still defensively too. They're the best talent of the 4, right? I leaned Chiefs based off of experience and just kind of pedigree. The talent on the Eagles defense is insane. And, you mentioned Darius Slay, but at the same time, like the 2 rookies they drafted, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean,
Yeah.
were the two highest graded by PFF man coverage defenders in the league as rookies. It was 1 and 2. That and that's not Darius Slay, right? Then the third guy you have is just Darius Slay, like an all-pro corner, and it blows my mind the abundance of talent that the Eagles have. I mean, love him or hate him, Howie Roseman is just making a juggernaut. It's crazy. So I just want to throw my 2 cents in. I love the Eagles pick. I went with the experience.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, you just have to look at our draft so far, right? A lot of Eagles, up
Hmm.
here up front. And I think we all knew that a lot of Eagles would go.
Yeah.
So absolutely, yeah, they're great.
Yeah, I think that was a smart pick. It was probably going to be my next pick. I considered it even for
Hmm.
last one, but I wanted to have someone to catch passes. And you know what? So now both defenses have been taken. I can wait on that. Uh, and so my only other open position is pass catcher. And I think I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger on Travis Kelce,
Ah,
because he might be possibly the only tight end we take. I don't know. We'll see. But similar to what we talked about with Mahomes, maybe not the greatest regular season, but it's pretty clear that he is an all-time playoff threat. He may not be in his prime anymore, but he didn't miss a beat. He had 117 receiving yards and a touchdown against the against the Texans, excuse me. And I see no, like, he's just wide open so often and against good teams that are supposedly ready to play the Chiefs. So I just don't, he's second all time in playoff receiving yards and touchdowns, only to Jerry Rice. He's an all time legend, and so he's going to be my pick.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
when I heard the sentence, you know, breaking a tie with Jerry Rice for the most 100-yard playoff games, that is a sentence I never thought I maybe never thought I would hear. Like breaking
Yeah,
a tie with Jerry Rice is a phrase I never thought that my ears would hear about a player.
yeah,
And so, you know, anytime you hear that, got to give it up.
yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, that throws a wrench. I was hoping Kelsey would drop to me right here. Um,
Yeah,
mm,
I knew I missed him when I didn't take him with those two
hmm.
picks, but I wanted him to.
I played the risk here. I was hoping he'd follow me right here, but that's okay. We recover. I got AJ Brown as my first pass catcher. Dominant outside receiver, just an absolute mauler. Operates like a running back if you need him to. I think. I mean, we got to have something splashy as well. I'm gonna go with Xavier Worthy, the rookie. I mean,
Wow.
just putting raw speed on the field, kind of like what you're saying for AJ Brown as well. It's like the defense has to notice it because if they don't, it's gone, right? Like you can't ignore that type of speed on the field. Say what you want about him as a receiver, I still think he's got a lot of room to grow, but the speed can't be ignored. And to pair that type of a player with AJ Brown
And the Philly O line.
and the Philly O line, going to
Yeah,
give you some time. They're going to give you some time.
for
I'm going
those
to take,
swing passes and whatnot.
yeah, I mean, just, giving us plenty of time for a good swing pass.
The jet sweep. Yeah.
The jet sweep with AJ Brown or Xavier Worthy, either of them is honestly nasty work. I really like that. And that leaves me with an interesting choice because I have running back and I don't want to pick a running back. Um, but then quarterback is not the value pick to take. I should take a running back.
Well, you
But
already.
here,
Oh no. Oh yeah, yeah.
I
Never
don't
mind.
have a running back yet. Those are my last two positions. And so I'm
You
like,
kind of went opposite me.
yeah. So I need a quarterback. I need a running back. And, I'm looking at the running backs left. We've got Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson, from the Commanders. We've got Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco. We got James Cook and Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, I guess, too. I'm not in love with any of them.
Can I just say, I like pick who you want. I feel like there's a clear number one of those guys. Maybe I'm crazy.
Maybe.
No, no, there's not.
Dallas, maybe this will make you happy, but I gotta go with my gut. I'm making a team my way. Give him the offensive line, give him a big body and a speedy body. We're looking at one of the best deep ball throwers coming out of college that the world has ever seen. I'm taking Jaden Daniels. I said he's been nothing but special. He's going to keep it up for me here. Uh, I love Scary Terry. I love Scary Terry. If Jaden Daniels had AJ Brown and Xavier Worthy, I don't know if this would be a conversation of who's going to the Super Bowl, to be honest. Like it would be quite a dynamic offense,
I and
especially
I
that
was
offensive line too.
I was pretty sure that was going to be the quarterback you wound up with.
Hmm.
I'm surprised you didn't jump the running back room, but I guess yeah, if you think they're all fairly equal.
The one thing I've learned, and obviously this is different, it could come back to bite me here, but I'm like, when it comes to drafting in football and any sport really, it doesn't matter what the value is. You got to take your guy. If you trust it, and you want a guy, you got to take your guy.
Yeah, the difference here being he certainly would not have been off the board by the time it got back to
You never want to leave it in someone else's hands.
All right.
I've got a
No, I
little
mean, look,
trick up my sleeve.
you know, in memoriam, Jalen Hurts did not get taken today. He pisses me off. Uh, that's why I didn't take him.
Why? Why?
Uh,
Why?
all I do when I watch Eagles games, which I watch a fair amount of because they're on national TV a lot. Uh, all I do when I watch Eagles games is I watch Jalen Hurts bail out of pockets that Geno Smith would murder Tyler Lockett to have. He will leave a pocket in zero point 0.2 seconds, and it makes me furious because it never and it so rarely like leads to anything good, right? He leaves the pocket and he like has to double back, and now he's 10 yards back there taking a sack or throwing it away. And like honestly, his playoff performance this season hasn't impressed me at all. This weather was a factor last weekend for sure, but that's your home stadium. That's your weather. And
Yeah.
so, the weather was a factor for sure, and Saquon being dominant, not having to go to the air, well, that was a factor. But he just didn't. He has not impressed me this playoffs. He pisses me off in general. That's why I didn't take him, and why I thought going into the draft that he would be the one left off the board.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if you look at all four quarterbacks and you like the only argument that he's not the fourth out of four is that if you really don't trust a rookie. But I think Jaden Daniels has far outperformed him this season and in the playoffs. So yeah,
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I'll come to the defense of Jalen Hurts a little bit because it does suck being left off the list. But like, I mean, the dude, he's kind of said it in some interviews. Like, he's not playing for stats; he's playing for wins. And I agree with you. I think he bails out of the pocket too much, and sometimes bailing out of the pocket is a 45-yard touchdown against the Rams, right, on the opening drive. Yeah, it sometimes works out. The reason I'm going with Jaden is purely I think he's just a better passer. At the end of the day, he's a
Yeah.
better passer. I personally hate the tush push. I never want my quarterback to do it. So I don't care about squatting 600 pounds. It not a factor to me. So I went with the arm talent. If I'm talking about everything else, I mean intangibles, all of it. Like Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. There's a reason they just keep winning, right?
there's a
Like,
reason he's one of the final four left. You know,
yeah, yeah.
that alone is impressive.
And on top of that, I mean, dude, he's about to lose Kellen Moore, so he's going to be on his, is it fifth offensive coordinator in 5 years?
Something like that.
Yeah, the Eagles just drop coordinators like it's nothing, and so I get what you're saying. Geno Smith could never escape the pockets that Jalen Hurts does. So
Fair enough. All right, so I have defense and offensive line left, which you guys have both taken yours. So
Mhm.
uh, no one can snipe one from me. Um, and I think so. In this case, I'm gonna pick whatever one I think is better first, because, like Matt said, you got to take your guy
Yes,
in
sir.
the draft. And not that it's everything, but Pro Football Focus, uh, they do, positional ratings. They have the Bills, the Eagles, and the Chiefs all in the top 10. Um, Chiefs are number 7, Bills are number 8, so really that's a toss up. Um, and Eagles are number 2. Um, the Commanders are all the way down at 27, and
They're terrible.
there's only 32 teams in here. So I think it's
There's
pretty
only
obvious.
4 teams.
Well, yes, there's only 4 teams, but there's 32 teams in the
27th out of
league.
4.
Um, I think this is an easy choice, and I think it's not just because they are so much better than the Commanders' offensive line, but I think the Chiefs' offensive line is truly a great unit. Um, I think, the offense could have done better as a whole this year, but um, they you don't want to take the field against them. You don't want to have. I know it's a lot of Mahomes and it's a lot of magic that he makes, but the offensive line is no joke, and I think the Commanders is just not in the same league. So that's why I'm going with the Kansas City O line.
And like a huge perk of taking the Chiefs O line, I did consider this, is you can jump off sides on almost every play. Like you get to start early. Almost every
True.
play. And I mean, you're talking
No
about
Well,
doubts about that.
no,
game
does
of
that?
inches.
Do you think that's Kansas City offensive line, or do you think that gets to go with Mahomes wherever it is? you
Mahomes
know,
is actually, I'm gonna say this, and this could be a debate for a different time. Cause little backstory here. Our fantasy group chat gets into some pretty heated debates over some stuff, and we recently had the Mahomes conversation of like, is this guy getting the special treatment? I mean, from the outside looking in, absolutely. But it's actually kind of crazy, dude. I saw some numbers, and he's not even like really near the top in terms of quarterbacks in the league right now, in terms of like amount of roughing the passers and all these types of things, first downs given by penalty, etc. You know, drives continuing because of penalties. He sits middle of the pack. The person who actually has the most is Josh Allen. And it's not like particularly close. And I thought that was a really interesting stat because I never thought of Josh Allen as being the guy who's benefited all the time from the refs. It's if you watch the game, it's like clearly Mahomes. Anyway,
it
that can be a
it
conversation for a
seems
different
like
time.
I think the difference is it seems like Mahomes is aiming for that to happen,
Yeah,
and
I mean the flopping thing that sucks. Like straight up,
yeah,
that sucks. That puts a bad taste in my mouth for him.
but yeah, I
Um,
mean the Broncos Bills playoff game. I mean it wasn't close anyways, but like the refs missed a defensive offsides and then came over to the bench and apologized to Josh
mhm,
Allen, which they
mhm.
missed a call, but like, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah, in the middle of the game too, and he's just like,
apologizing.
"I'm sorry, brother."
Like, it's just not a good look. So yeah,
Definitely
so
not.
now it is Dallas's pick. He gets his last two back to back.
The
Wait,
last two.
Drew, do you have Mahomes and the Chiefs offensive line?
No, I have Josh Allen in the Chiefs offensive line.
That's right. I was gonna say you're nasty for that.
Um, all right. So I'm gonna take my last two here. I'm gonna go ahead and take my running back now, and then I'm gonna take James Cook.
Yeah.
I think the pass catching ability puts him above the other runners on the board. I think, even Eckler, I think, what James Cook can do with the ball in his hands, I think is very special. I think he's a little bit, perhaps his skill set as a whole is underrated. but he's that more of a bruising power back that I like. Shout out to Marshawn, shout out to all those Seahawk legends, the bruisers. But yeah, he's more of that kind of running back that I like. He will deliver some hits. He will take some contact. He runs right into the teeth of things. And also, he has an ability to get, you talk about swing passes, you can talk about screens. He has that ability to make moves in space and make some things happen. Um, and so I'm going to take him as my
He
running back here.
he
Happy
led the
with that.
league in rushing touchdowns, did he not?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm like 95% sure he led the league in rushing touchdowns. And I mean, he is like a power back, but he's not even that big. That's what's fun about like his play style. Like he does it from this like smaller stature.
hmm Absolutely. And then my last pick, I'm going to take another Bill. I'm taking Amari Cooper.
Mm.
I think the Bills aren't using him that well, or frankly, at all. In these playoffs, I think he is still yet to pop. Maybe in general on the Bills, you think about his season as a whole, but he has yet to pop in that offense. But I think I'll take him over any of the other receivers on his team for sure. Even though his playoff numbers haven't been what we maybe thought they would be. But yeah, I just think he is a great guy to pair with Devontae Smith. I think they have complementary skill sets. Yeah, I mean, what could have been. We'll see on my team what could have been this year. Patrick Mahomes and Amari Cooper. If the Chiefs had the courage, they would have traded for him. But yeah, so that's my squad rounded out. I'm proud of it. I'm happy with it. Let's wrap. What
All
are your
right.
picks?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they're all going to be good teams, I think. But that is quite a solid team you've got yourself, Dallas. So my last pick is going to be a defense. There are two left. It's either Buffalo or Washington. Um, and I was looking at some numbers. Neither one of these defenses are outstanding. The two best defenses definitely got taken already. Um, so I just looked up some basic stats, and when it comes to scoring defense, the Bills are ranked eighth in the NFL this year, and the Commanders are 18th in the NFL this year. So um, I'm going to take that a little bit with a grain of salt in that I think the divisional opponents for the Commanders are a little tougher than the divisional opponents for the Bills. But um, rushing defense is where it wasn't even close. Let me pull this up really quick. Opponent rushing yards per game. Uh, Buffalo was the 12th best, so kind of middle of the pack, but Washington was the 30th best rushing defense. So not good at all against the
And
rush.
again,
It,
this is
it
out of
showed
four
it,
teams.
it showed on Saturday as well, by the way, that 30th rushing defense.
Right. Yeah, because they won a game against the Lions very impressively, but it was not because of their defense. And there were some turnovers for sure that were, they did
Yep.
well in that department, but the Lions in their good drives just had explosive plays going on.
Dude,
Uh,
did you see the stat that all four teams that won had less
less
offense than
yards.
the other
Yeah,
teams?
yeah,
In like a crazy slate of games for that to happen.
yeah. So not a good look for the defenses here.
Mm-mm.
I think we're not really supposed to take in the actual matchup into it, but I can't ignore the fact that the 30th ranked rushing defense is playing the Eagles O line and
We'll get to the Phillies.
and Saquon Barkley.
Trey
Uh,
Turner's gonna go crazy.
um, so I'm going to take the Bills defense over the Commanders defense, which means that uh, the Commanders offensive line and defense both were the units not taken. So shout out Jaden Daniels for everything you've done to get them this far.
Jaden Daniels is the savior of that franchise, man. It's actually crazy what he's been able to do. Not with nothing,
I
just not with what the rest of the competition brought.
Yeah. And so the last pick of the draft is Matt, and all you have left is running back. So
Yeah, this is where I'm hoping. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how strict. I don't know where the gray areas are of this draft. Um, I was sitting here thinking while you guys are picking your teams, I'm like, man, you guys have everything. James Cook was the last good running back. Yes, I could have taken him, but I had to go with my gut. Had to get my guy. And that leaves me with a conundrum, right? I don't
You
particularly
you got to take a running
I
back. I'm going to get out ahead of this. It has to be a running
no,
back.
but coming out of college, they said he should have been I Jalen Hurts.
Uh-uh. No
I
chance.
could
And that was your plan? I know that was your plan now, taking Jaden Daniels in the fifth. No,
uh
not
okay.
allowed. I appreciate the effort. We're not going to allow that.
All right.
Now,
You
you
know
could
what?
convince me on Mariota. No, I'm just kidding.
I love Marcus. Dude, if I'm talking about who's actually the most talented running back left, this is unconventional. I don't think it's any of the starting running backs left. I don't even think it's any of the big name running backs left. The best running back I think that's left on this board is Ray Davis. Straight up.
Look, yeah,
The rookie, the third string back in Buffalo. Every single time he gets on the field for more than like 10 snaps, it feels like he's breaking off big plays. I I I don't like Kareem Hunt. I don't trust him and he's slow. Isaiah Pacheco looks crazy when he's running and then somehow is just only picking up like 4 yards every time. I don't know. I think I'm going Ray Davis. I think he's actually the most explosive back here left. Nothing. I respect Brian Robinson. I like Austin Eckler, but I
maybe
don't know.
3 years ago, Austin Eckler, but yeah.
I think Ray Davis has the most juice left on this board.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick. I
No,
Yeah.
that's fair
really
enough.
there's a reason I jumped on running back so early. I did not like what the later picks would have opened up.
And here's the reality on this team. I could go run. I could be the running back on this team with my arthritis, and I still might gain 3 yards per carry behind the Eagles O line.
That's true.
Jordan Mailata gives me a hug and falls backwards. We're gaining 3 yards. Like,
Yeah. Um, yeah. So we'll put a graphic on the screen for you, but let us know, who do you think got the best team here? Um, we're going to take a
Yeah.
quick break, and when we get back, I mean, it'll be instantaneous for you, but we're going to talk baseball.
yes, sir.
Welcome back. For us, for you, it's only been moments. But we are back, and after the draft, now coming off of the high of that, we're all emotionally charged up. We're ready to fire away. We are going to talk some baseball. So big-ish news happening in baseball at the end of last week. We have another, Japanese superstar coming over. We talked about it last week where we thought he might end up, where could use him. But Roki Sasaki did decide on where he was going to go. So we now know that he has chosen the Los Angeles Dodgers as his preferred destination to start his career in MLB. And
Nailed it.
look, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
We
look,
all
it
hit the hot
was
takes.
it wasn't a hard call to make at the end of the day for him, I would imagine, but that's where he ended up. Also, since we last talked, Tanner Scott, an all-star closer, signed with the Dodgers as well. And so we were talking in the group chat later last week about the idea of the impact that the current super team could have on the sport, right? And a lot of interesting things came up. So, what we're going to do now is, we're just going to have a little bit of a freewheeling discussion about, what the impact of this super team could be now that they are seemingly, at what we can only hope is full strength, right? And so the question is that I want to start the conversation with is, do you think that one team amassing several superstars is bad for the sport? And if you do, how specifically is it bad for the sport? And I want to start with Matt. So hit it.
Yeah, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I think it's just awful. I think it's a crapshoot. Um, I definitely fall on the side where, and I mean, we can get into the semantics of it. We can get into the actual like specifics, but I think overall, what's happening with baseball right now and I want to make this as clear as possible, and I'm hoping that I'm being honest even to myself, not even just as a Padres fan. I think as a sports fan, I think this is bad. Um, I'm not against teams wanting to win. I'm not against teams wanting to try to win, right? And obviously, you can have the best team of all time and still lose. Like that's happened throughout sports history. And in my sport, in football, I think the proclaimed dream team of the 2008, I believe, Eagles. It was the Chip Kelly, Mike Vick. They brought in Nnamdi Asomugha, like just the most stacked team. I think they went 8-8. Like it didn't gel. It didn't turn into anything. But I mean, we talked about this slightly last week, right? The Dodgers have essentially a varsity and a JV pitching staff at this point. They can put out 10 starters who all might be top two, top three guys on any other team. Um, you bring that all together, and then you also talk about the bullpen that they have. And they just signed Tanner Scott. They also today just signed Kirby Yates. And they're building out this bullpen where I'm like, okay, so they got every single player. Like, oh no, they didn't sign Anthony Santander. Good for the league. Um, it, 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 I don't like, I want to be I want to be thoughtful with my words. I don't want to be too out of control, but I think it absolutely is ruining the league. And I think when you look at the national media, I think that there's such a glazing of what the Dodgers are doing that isn't being afforded to the rest of the league. I think when you look at what the Mets were trying to do with spending all this money, and we talked about, are the Mets even spending the money well? That's up to question. But when Steve Cohen, is it Steve Cohen? Yeah.
Steve
Um,
Cohen, yeah.
yeah, when Steve Cohen was just shelling out money, the MLB implemented new tax thresholds and they implemented these certain steps on how much could be spent, all these things. And then I see what's happening with the Dodgers, and I'm not even going to get into the deferments because, I mean, we see all teams do it. Like, all teams have deferments. That's not even the issue. But what the issue is it's this like national acceptance of every team should want to be like the Dodgers. And then when teams try, it's not really met with a lot of approval from the league. And you mix that with, I see Passan, I see Ken Rosenthal, I see these guys who are paid to be MLB media as a whole. They are not Dodgers media, right? These are supposed to be central, holistic to the league. And these guys are straight up just on social media being like, the Dodgers are the best organization and yada yada yada. And there's this one guy, I forget his name, I'm not as familiar with all of the MLB media guys, but he put out this tweet after Roki signed where he was like, ultimately, all it came down to was the culture, the front office, and I mean, the history. The Dodgers signing of Jackie Robinson is why
Yeah,
Roki signed. And it's like,
Buster Olney did that.
yeah. So it's just like,
Classic, by the way, classic move.
yeah, I mean, Japanese guys love signing where Jackie Robinson played. Big, big deal for us Japanese guys. And it's just this weird vibe right now where we've talked about in the football world. We've talked about in our group chat about why it feels like certain teams get favoritism in the NFL, and I fear that's what's happening with the Dodgers right now. The only difference is the NFL has harsh and strict stipulations on how spending can be allocated, and super teams have a counting the clock, essentially. You cannot hold a super team because at some point, even if a guy takes less than what he should, 10, 20% under market, you have to fill up enough of a team that you can't afford to keep every single superstar that comes through your organization. And with baseball, the fact that there is no salary cap, the fact that there is no salary minimum, because I hear the argument. This is, I feel like, the argument that gets pitched to me every time is is that other owners need to be doing more. And I saw a tweet today from Jack Flaherty, right? And he was like, there's one team that everybody's hating and it's not their fault. Like the other teams need to do more. And it's like, sure. every team is owned by a very rich person or group of rich people. Not every team still has the money that the Dodgers do. At the end of the day, there are teams where their ownership is worth the amount of the Dodgers payroll for this year. The Dodgers are closer to 400 million than they are 300 million. And I believe the Reds ownership group is only worth $400 million. They would have to give up their value as a ownership group to even afford the roster that the Dodgers are going to be putting on the field this year. And I think to that extent, it's unrealistic. And the fact that profits aren't shared across the board like they are in other groups, to my knowledge, I'm willing to be wrong on this. But in the NFL, profits are shared between the owners and between the teams. When you talk about a centralized TV deal, I look at the deal that the Dodgers have. It is almost double the next closest TV deal to my knowledge. And so when you talk about the annual income that comes from that, and you talk about all these things, and I get market size, I get all of it, but we're talking about, does it ruin a sport? And at the end of the day, a big market can have its advantages, in the same way that states that have higher taxes and lower taxes have advantages. Um, but at the end of the day, when a league doesn't put barriers and boundaries around what is allowed, I think it allows for stuff like this to happen. And I think it kills the energy around the league, because at some point it's not good if every single team's goal is not to win, but is to simply play spoiler. Um, it kind of, I mean, that's what the AFC feels like right now in football, right? Every team's goal seems to be, oh, let's just knock the Chiefs out. It's not, let's go win the Super Bowl. It's, let's knock the Chiefs out. And when that's the goal, I don't think it's in a healthy spot. Um, and I'm not against having a big dog. I'm not against having a team to chase, but that's the point of being a champion. That's supposed to be the team with the target on their back. And I appreciate the fact that baseball hasn't had, a repeat champion in God knows how long. And at the same time, I don't know. It feels bad from an outside perspective. I have a lot more I can say, but I want to get your guys' input on this as well before I just talk for an hour. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I can chime
yeah,
in.
yeah.
I um I disagree in a general
Hmm.
sense. I find what the Dodgers are doing to be highly annoying. Um, as a no one here is a Dodgers fan. In fact, we live in Southern California around many Dodger fans, and so I think being in that unique position, especially, it's more annoying because it's like you see it everywhere. You can't escape it. They just won the World Series with a team that was much worse than what their team seems like now. So it is annoying. I didn't want Roki Sasaki to end up with the Dodgers. Of course, I thought he would, and he did. I didn't want Tanner Scott to wind up with the Dodgers, and he did. Same with Blake Snell earlier this offseason. Same with Shohei a year ago. Um, the thing is, though, I don't think that it's ruining baseball. And you can check back with me if the Dodgers win the next 3 or 4 World Series. Then I'm like, okay, yeah, this is annoying. I hate this. It's no fun. Similar to how I felt about the NBA back when it was Warriors Cavs every single year. It's like, well, how is this fun for the 28 other teams? Um, so, yeah, it could end up being bad. I'm not ready to go there yet as it being bad for the sport because the Dodgers haven't done anything besides sign a bunch of players. They won the World Series last year, but like that was their first, in some people's mind, legitimate World Series of this entire time, and they've been to the playoffs every year since 2012. So they've been good this whole time. They've never maybe had a roster quite like this, and they are outspending everyone by quite a bit at this point. The thing that I have an issue with is the players who had like Roki Sasaki's a interesting case because he's from Japan, he's young, uh, he I can see the allure of the Dodgers for someone like him. You
Let
know,
me say it, his press conference pissed me the hell off. Like some of the stuff that he said, we can get back to that. But dude,
I didn't even
his press,
watch the press conference.
dude, it pissed me off. It pissed me off. Continue.
Um, the thing is, like the Dodgers, they offer the chance to play with Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. So, I mean, I'm sure that played a part in his decision. They obviously offer the chance for success. They're in the playoffs every year. They just won the World Series. Um, it does bother me from a like the standpoint of a fan who's like who wants things to be as competitive as possible. The rich get richer with talent on the roster. But I just think like what the proposals to do something about it, to me, that's not that's not a solution. The solution, like for example, if we put a salary cap in place in baseball, well, I guess that'll stop the Dodgers from spending to the amount that they spend, but it's not going to help the league as a whole. It'll just make the players get less money in general. Um, and I'm anti that because the owners are already so rich. And to your point, Matt, there are owners out there certainly that do not have these kind of resources that the Dodgers have. It would be crazy to say that every ownership group should act exactly like this one, but the fact remains there is a good many of them that are billionaires or owned by billionaire groups,
Hmm.
some big market teams that don't act like it. And there is not a salary cap, but there is the luxury tax thresholds. And very, very few teams ignore those thresholds. Like across the board, besides the Dodgers and besides the Mets at some points and the Yankees at some points, they just they act like that luxury tax line is a cap. So if you make it a hard cap, like I think that just punishes the wrong people. Um, I think that'll punish the players in the long run, and I don't think that's good. I just would like to see more players have the competitive drive, and I'd like to see more teams, you know, be as risk adverse or I mean, as whatever the opposite of risk adverse is, to just go for it the way the Dodgers have. Because what I'm hearing about Tanner Scott, for example, I mean, he's had a great 2 years, but relief pitchers as a whole are not a sure thing ever, really. And so it seemed like no one really wanted to go to the 4 year, $72 million mark that the Dodgers wanted to. So they had the highest offer on the table. And yeah, maybe that's not fair to the Reds or to the Brewers, um, these ownership groups that don't have as much money or as much net worth, but that's no excuse for the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Mets, the Blue Jays, the Cubs, the Braves, like the Giants. If he took less money to go there, then I have a real problem with Tanner Scott. Not with the Dodgers because that's not their fault, but him taking the best possible offer for him, I can't fault the guy for that. I'm faulting these other teams who are like, I don't want to give Tanner Scott a fourth year. It's like it's 1 year of a relief pitcher for money that's in the future where it's going to be worth less than it is now. Like they just need to kind of nut up and do it, um, and like worry about the fourth year when the fourth year comes. And how about worry about 2025 now, like the Dodgers are doing? And there are other teams to an extent that are doing similar things, but um, the Dodgers seem to see that they have this incredible opportunity, this window, and they're taking advantage of it. And I can't really blame them. I for what's happening now, you know, I blame other teams for not willing not willing to say, you know what, the Dodgers are willing to go there. The Dodgers are really smart and good. Maybe we should be willing to go higher just to make sure the Dodgers don't get this guy that they clearly really want. I think everyone has some blame in this. Um, I just don't see it as a problem to be fixed by actual rules. And to like you brought up the Steve Cohen tax, that they called it that because it just so happened he started he bought the Mets right before there was a labor dispute, and they had to come up with a new collective bargaining agreement. So that's just a timing issue. There's another you know collective bargaining, like the CBA ends after the 2026 season, so people are already predicting there will be a lockout then, and now a
Yeah.
lot of fans want a cap and stuff. So like we could see some sort of rules coming down that are named after the Dodgers in that CBA. We'll just see what happens. I think some people have advocated for an international draft, um, because it seems like now every Japanese star is going to want to play for the Dodgers, and they have equal chance as anyone versus in a draft, they would have to go to the team that picked them. That I'm not as opposed to because American players already have to deal with it. Um, but it is a bummer every time a player gets less rights. That's my take on that. But yeah, I mean, no team has really gone for it the way the Dodgers have, and that's very annoying. But I don't think it's ruining the game as we know it.
Well, so okay, and let me clarify. I am frustrated with the Dodgers because they are the beneficiaries of something I don't like, right? Like I do, like you're saying, I do not blame a team for taking advantage of and attempting everything they can to win. That that is the heart of competition, right? Like you do what you must to win. That being said, the thing that makes me frustrated is when I talk about is baseball being ruined, is the super team ruining it? I think what I mean more so is the big picture of is the culture of baseball ruined by the stuff that's happening? Not, all this other like logistical stuff, but I think like, you talk about like, oh, well, owners need to be spending more. Absolutely. The other owners need to spend more. That is, I think, universally agreed upon is the other owners need to be putting up more. Players are choosing to go to the Dodgers over equal or similar contract offers. All of that kind of combines into is the culture of baseball not in a good spot? Because at the end of the day, and this is I'll bring up the Roki Sasaki thing now. Every single thing that's been said, and granted, there could have been all this talk for leverage and for a number of reasons, right? But prior to all of this, we have reports both directly and indirectly that he wants to choose a smaller to mid-market team. We have knowledge that yes, he is, ex teammates with Shohei and Yoshi Yamamoto, but his childhood idol is Yu Darvish. And on top of that, he comes out and says he is in his own press conference that uh, playing with other Japanese players wasn't a deciding factor for him. Um, he said that in his press conference with the Dodgers, his intro conference, and then reports come out that the Padres were actually offering him well above what he got from the Dodgers. He ends up getting 6.5 from the Dodgers. The Padres were willing to make moves that would go up to a $10 million offer. So when you're talking about the actual even raw numbers, he took less to go be with the Dodgers. And he goes to play with the team full of the Japanese stars and then says, that didn't even matter to me. And it's like, well, either you're a liar or this is bad culture, right? Like it's either you're lying about all the things that mattered to you, or you're just choosing to go play for the easy win.
I
And I just, and sorry, I'll just say this last thing and then you go. I just think when it comes to the culture of the sport, any sport that doesn't have boundaries and parameters, yes, it can be restricting on players. And there's a reason baseball contracts seem to be ballooning higher than any other sport contract, and they make the most money, and maybe athletes should be making that much money. And at the same time, it's just this culture thing of like baseball viewership and ratings seem to be in the dumpsters. The culture in terms of the competitive nature, players seem fine either just going for the easy win or washing up in some random place and just being like, I'm not gonna try that hard. It's a long season. It's similar to what the NBA is struggling with like load management, right? Like it's this cultural thing within the sport, and it drives me nuts, dude. And, everyone's like, oh, well, the Dodgers have Shohei. Everyone wants to play with Shohei. Well, the Angels got Anthony Rendon. That was their big prize for having Shohei on their team. Like, who else did they bring in when he was on the Angels? The Angels have the second biggest TV deal. They have some of the most money in the league as well. They have every opportunity. And yes, this comes back to the ownership and Artie Moreno not being forthcoming with all of this money. And there's the surrounding stuff. But at the end of the day, the culture seems like it's shifted. And to me, it's shifted in a way that's non competitive. And this is the highest level of the sport. At the end of the day, no other league is the MLB. Obviously, college is not the highest level for this, and when it's the highest level of the sport, and yet it feels non-competitive, to me that feels bad. Um,
But why does it feel non-competitive? Did the Dodgers steamroll everyone for the last 5 years?
no, no, but the problem is in my opinion, is it a good thing that every other team has to do David versus Goliath every year? Is that a good thing?
Well,
Because would you
it
say like, well, let me compare this. Let me compare this. Would you say overall that the transfer portal is a good thing that happened at NCAA?
I don't know nearly enough about NCAA, but it does seem a little wild what's going on with the transfer portal.
It's a little bit crazy, but one thing that people notice is as soon as the players were given, their freedoms or whatever, but like as soon as the paradigm of the sport shifted and changed the culture, guess what happened? The same two, three teams that have been winning the championships and been in the championships for the last 15 years didn't make playoffs, right? Alabama was left out of playoffs. And yes, new coach, new whatever, they don't have 5-star recruits sitting on the bench for 3 years waiting for their chance as a senior. Those guys are now going and playing at Temple. They're going and playing at Marshall. They're going and playing at Boise State, right? Like they're playing at these middle level teams. And so when you look at like the diversification of talent, that creates a better, more engaging, more competitive thing. And yes, the Dodgers have not won every championship for the last 5 years. They've won two, in my opinion, of the last 5 years. And on top of that, it's like it would be so much more exciting for the sport if some of their stars were stars for other teams. And not just the Padres for me, but like, dude, you go and put some great players in some of these smaller market teams. Like my pipe dream was somehow the Marlins would shell out money for Juan Soto. It blows my mind that some of these teams like they don't, and yes, it goes back to the ownership, but like they don't try because they don't have a chance. Like,
Well, I mean, I kind of disagree with what a lot of what you're saying. I disagree with the thought that the baseball ratings are like in the toilet. They've actually got up since the rule changes, like as a
by
whole.
by what year of the rule changes?
Was 23 the first year the rule
Because
changes?
I'm looking at this right now, and dating back to 1968, so 56
Well,
years. We
you
we can
can't
go
do
back.
rating. Back then, it was easier to get ratings because there was less channels, there was less things on TV.
I'm not even going
So,
by ratings. I'm going by raw viewership, just the numbers, right?
right.
Just the actual like raw numbers. In terms of out of 56, 2024, 41st, 23, 51st, 22, 49th,
Yeah, well,
21,
that's
48.
why I'm saying you can't go back that far because there were less things to have eyes on back then. So like, yeah, you're gonna have less viewers now than back then.
But I would
I
argue that there's no era that's easier to watch stuff in. Like
Well, sure,
every
but that's
other,
not that's that to me that's neither here nor there. The baseball ratings they haven't been the problem, I don't think, that people make it out to be. There's still plenty of money in the sport. I mean, you've said it yourself, the Dodgers TV deal is just
Mhm.
out of this world. Um, and that's not even my concern. Like, I could care less if the game is dying, like, uh, because there's always going to be people who want to play it. Like, it's not going to disappear in my lifetime. I think the Dodgers, like, the culture issue of, well, it's not competitive. They have a really, really good roster, a pretty formidable roster. Um, but it's not unlike anything we have ever seen in the game. Just the 2009 Yankees offseason, they signed CC Sabathia, Nick Swisher, Mark Teixeira, AJ Burnett. Um, they re-signed Andy Pettit, like, and they already had Jeter, they already had A-Rod. They were just like getting everyone. It felt like, and then they won the World Series in 2009, and that they haven't won since. And to me, like, I'm not going to argue whether it's good or bad for one team to be so talented. I mean, probably bad, but you know, I'm going to turn back to then someone else stop them. But I don't think there's a culture issue in where, like, because you brought up players taking less or similar deals to go to the Dodgers. The only players I know that of are the Japanese guys. Shohei had multiple teams agree to the same deal that the Dodgers ended up signing for him, or vice versa, whatever. Um, Yamamoto, I don't know what his offers were exactly, but he probably had a similar one from the Yankees and the Mets. And then Sasaki, I mean, the Padres reportedly offered more. He clearly doesn't care about money, or he wouldn't have come over yet. Like, that's not going to be the decider for him. I do think he's probably lying when he says that having Japanese teammates was not a factor for him. I mean, I'm sorry, that just can't be true. And then um, the thing is, like, the Dodgers are unequivocally the best organization in baseball right now. Like, do they do everything the best? No, but they do everything pretty darn well, and they win the most and they spend the most. So if you're, thinking about joining a team, I think yes, there should be more players who are like, I want to join a team that could maybe take them down. But if all things are equal and you get a chance to play with Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani and you know these are your countrymen or they're just an all-star cast team. I mean, like, I can see the appeal. Do I like it? No, I don't. I just don't buy that it makes the game uncompetitive. There's been so many off seasons where I get so mad about players going to certain teams, and I'm like, that's going to make the sport suck. I have to watch this guy play on this team, and sometimes it does suck, but as a whole, baseball just keeps plugging along, and it gives us a villain. I don't know that we needed a villain, but like I think every team's goal is to win the World Series, and in order to do that, you probably think you have to beat the Dodgers at some point along the way. And you know, so good for the team that takes care of them.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah,
and
I think to avoid talking in circles a little bit, I think that's a good place to stop for today. We'll definitely revisit this again. This will come up again. as the season goes on and as the Dodgers rack up their wins and things like that, and as the postseason matures and everything. This will come up again, and we'll get a shot to go after it. But yeah, I think for now, I did want to get in a little bit of Hall of Fame talk. There's some players I want to talk about and everything. So appreciate the freewheeling discussion. We can disagree and still be friends in this world. How about that? What an
No,
example we are. What an example we are. But yeah, so yeah, appreciate this. We'll do more of those, where, we have differences of opinion. We just kind of go on it for a little while. We'll do more of those in the future. I like that a lot. Um, but for now, I did want to shift a little bit to Hall of Fame. The inductees came out this week, going in Ichiro, going in Billy Wagner, and CC Sabathia also going in. Two first ballots and one last shot. I like that. I think that's pretty good. So those are our inductees this year. Just a couple of quick questions that we can talk about. I think the headline among people like me who, don't necessarily, uh, pay that much attention to year over year ballots and whose last shot was it, who's not going to be next year, was that Ichiro was one vote short of unanimous. It's the coveted, thing that no one gets anymore. Only one unanimous player, Hall of Fame player in baseball so far. So Ichiro, one vote short of unanimous. What do you think? Big deal? No big deal?
I think it's an overblown deal just because, like you said, no one really ever gets it. It's only been one player ever, and the player was Mariano Rivera, who, as amazing as of a closer as he was, like, is anyone saying he's the best player to ever play baseball? Like, I don't think he's even in the discussion. So, with that being said, yeah, you have no real excuse for not voting for Ichiro for the Hall of Fame, but literally everyone besides Mariano Rivera had people not vote for him. And we're talking Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Ted Williams. I mean, uh, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens didn't even get in. And there's separate reasons for that. But, like, there's the curmudgeon voter who will find an excuse to do anything. So I'm not going to get too caught up on that. He missed by one vote. So maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was someone who really wanted to vote for 10 guys and knew, or I should say 11 guys, and knew Ichiro would be getting in, so they decided to use their vote a different way. We don't know because it's going to remain anonymous, but I, I don't get caught up in that. To me, the headline is Ichiro, Hall of Famer, no doubt, first ballot, and good for him. One of my, I would say, on the Mount Rushmore of childhood baseball players for me in the impact he had. I grew up going to Mariners games a lot. He was the guy on the billboards. He was the guy in the magazines, in the newspapers, whatever. Um, so to come over, he came over from Japan at age 27 for his rookie year, which is, you know, pretty old for a rookie.
that's in their
And
prime.
he still amassed over 3,000 hits in Major League Baseball. He played until he was 45. Uh, without a doubt, for now, without a doubt, the best career of any Japanese player. Um, I mean, Shohei is already, in the discussion, I guess. But uh, first Japanese player to be in the Hall of Fame, no more deserving than Ichiro. Just an absolute thrill to watch. Fast defense, could get a hit on anything. Didn't have the power numbers, but the story always was if he wanted to, he could have. And I'll choose to believe that. And
Hmm.
fun fact, we got to see him, all three of us, we saw him when he was at the end of his career playing for the Marlins. He was a road player in Seattle and he hit a home run. And probably one of
Yeah,
the last of his career.
I was gonna bring that up. I was gonna say most surprising in-person home run I've ever witnessed, for
Yeah.
sure, probably. Yeah, did not expect that at all. Was so glad to see it though.
yeah, so just thrilled about Ichiro, and congrats to him.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing too, we had a long list of one and dones this year. So we all know, unless the one of our viewers or listeners doesn't know, you can go one and done on the Baseball Hall of Fame ballot. If you don't get enough percentage of the votes, then you do drop off the ballot, and as far as that method of getting in, you can't get in. And so there were a lot of guys that, this is going to happen as the years go on now. A lot of guys that we grew up watching, that we grew up liking a lot, are now off the voting ballot for the writers. Guys like Ian Kinsler, Brian McCann, Troy Tulowitzki, Curtis Granderson, Cargo, Hanley, and also Ben Zobrist on that list too. So I just wanted to, pour one out. Do we have stories about these players, watching them growing up? What do you, anything come to mind when you think of some of these guys?
Yeah, I mean, these guys are, it's an accomplishment to get on the ballot. Um, it means you played 10 years at least of Major League Baseball, and it means you were notable enough that the Hall of Fame committee decided you were worthy of being on the ballot. Um, and that alone is an honor. It's kind of a trippy year for me. I kind of feel like this a little bit every year, but like this was the first year where all the new names on the ballot, it's like, oh, these are guys I watched as an adult. Like I've seen a lot of my childhood idols get into the Hall of Fame in the last 10 years or so, but like, um, I mean, Carlos Gonzalez like was an MVP candidate when I was in college, and now here he is on the ballot. Ben Zobrist was World Series MVP when the Cubs beat the Cleveland baseball team in 2016. That was like to me like that's just such a fresh memory. Like it's just weird to see these guys, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean the guys you mentioned, Hanley, his early days in Miami seemed like definitely someone who could have been a Hall of Famer. He got 0 votes. Just second half of his career didn't go as well, but certainly an all vibes guy. Carlos Gonzalez, one of the prettiest swings we've ever seen. Adam Jones, me and Dallas were at the World Baseball Classic game when he made his famous catch against the Dominican Republic.
yes, we were.
I won't say whether or not we were in our seats at that moment. Um,
Nope, doesn't matter.
uh,
Doesn't matter.
so like these are just guys like um, as fun as the Hall of Fame guys are, and the guys who get enough votes to be considered year after year. Um, these are the lists of guys. It's like, oh yeah, you know what? He was pretty good, and then you just kind of forget. Um,
Yeah,
and these guys are important too, and shout out to them for their careers. Um, but yeah, not going to be Hall of Famers, and that's okay. You don't have to be a Hall of Famer. You still can do a lot of memorable baseball things without making it to the Hall of Fame.
absolutely. Still did a great job, you all. Be proud of yourselves. Um,
For all you
but
almost Hall of Famers watching.
for all you almost Hall of Famers watching this, I gotta say, Ian Kinsler, I know you're watching, man. Angels Red Sox legend. I know you're watching today, and I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, congratulations to you for making that ballot and for a
Yeah.
wonderful career. We want to wrap, but we did forget at the football portion, we want to make our picks for the championship
Yes, yes,
game. So
yes.
we do want to run through those. So I'll start with Matt. Who you got this weekend?
Bills versus Chiefs. Same as last week. I'm going to be happily surprised if it's not, but can't vote against the Chiefs. It feels like malpractice at this point. Patrick Mahomes and company seem to just steamroll their way through playoffs every year. And we'll see what controversial stuff happens. Seems to be the two most controversial teams whenever they play each other, so should be entertaining to say the least. Going Chiefs in the AFC. Um, I'm going to say with my full chest this time, let's go Commanders. I'm not even going to sit here and say, like, they could. No, let's just buy in. Commanders are going to shock the Eagles. Jaden Daniels is going to make history as he makes his way to the Super Bowl. And I think Jaden Daniels versus Patrick Mahomes will be a showdown of maybe two of the prettiest balls we've seen in the NFL for quite some time. I mean, the two of them can just sling it. So I Chiefs Commanders, baby. Let's get it.
Not to be contrarian, but independently, I'm going to go opposite you. And now I don't think that this is going to be. I don't think any game will be a blowout by any means. I think any team this weekend has a real chance. Um, I'm going with Bills over Chiefs. I think it's got to be time. I know this might be a fool's errand to pick against the Chiefs, but like we've said in both episodes, like this just they're not dominating the way that you picture the Chiefs dominating, and that goes
Yep.
this whole season. They're obviously winning games, but their one legitimate loss this year has been against the Bills. Josh Allen can beat Patrick Mahomes in the regular season almost every time. He just can't beat him in the playoffs for whatever reason. I think, you know, it's going to be close. It could come down to the wire. I just think the Bills are a little bit better than the Chiefs, and I think something's got to go against the Chiefs' devil magic at some point and go right for the Bills. I'm just hoping it's this weekend, so I'm picking the Bills. And then I'm going to pick the Eagles over the Commanders. I was very impressed by the Commanders last weekend. If you play back, I was very confident that the Lions would win. Obviously, that didn't happen. I'm not as confident that the Eagles will beat the Commanders, but I think they will. I think they have the home field advantage in their favor. If it's a nice cold game like it was this past week, that I think favors the Eagles. I think the combination of the Eagles' offensive line and Saquon Barkley against that Washington rush defense that was 30th in the NFL this year does not bode well. But I think Jaden Daniels can definitely make it a game. But I have a hard time picking against the Eagles in this one.
Yeah, I like both these games to be pretty good. I'm also going to go with the Bills and the Eagles though. I'm sticking with the Bills. I had them last week. I'm going to stick with them here. I think they're ready to do it. I think they're playing with a lot of confidence right now. You saw it when the game was over last week. Josh Allen speaking very confidently about the defense, and other players, talking about the offense being in a gear that is different than the regular season. I think we can get Amari Cooper involved here, and you can see this Bills offense kind of take off a little bit, and maybe even start running away a little bit. Now I think Patrick Mahomes, if it comes down to that, he would come back and make it close. I like both these games to be close, but I will take Bills, and I'll take the Eagles too. Yeah, it's the Eagles' greatest strength versus the Commanders' greatest weakness here, and the disparage the this discrepancy between the two, the difference between the two, is too large, I think, for me to pick the Commanders. But I'd be happy to see him win. I talked about Dan Quinn and Bobby Wagner last week, but I saw something this week. There are, I think, 12 people on the Washington Commanders between players and staff who have ties to the Seahawks. And so, like the Seahawks special teams coordinator from a couple years ago is on their staff. Ken Norton Jr. is the linebacker coach. Guys like that. So I'd love to see the Commanders win because I love to see those guys go to the Super Bowl. But I think if I'm picking the Eagles. So that'll round out this week's episode of Stingers and Dingers. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll figure out like a real comprehensive ending that we can do every week. But for now, shout out to Ian Kinsler. Shout out to Adam Jones. Shout out to all the players that we picked for our teams this week. Shout out to all the players we didn't. Sorry to these Commanders defense. Sorry to pretty much every commander except for Terry and Jaden who didn't get picked. But for now, that'll do it for this week. Tune in again next week for another great episode. Thanks, boys.
Yes, sir.
See ya.